George, how you doing?
Good, Buffalo Brother John. We're here again.
We are here again. This is amazing.
It's so exciting to be talking about Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Bill playoff,
Playoff
Buffalo Bill
football. That's right.
divisional round playoff.
Yay! All right, so we wanted to do a kind of an impromptu, you know, kind of players to watch with the game. The game's in 2 days. This is taking
Hmm.
place. We're recording this Friday night.
Yeah.
All right, so players that we think, or players that we think should be watching for in this game coming up, and I'm the one shaking the table.
Oh,
It was me, yeah.
I was going to say that again. Oh, well, you know what, John? I watched Group.
Oh,
I like
the
to watch.
yes, he does weekly
Mhm.
videos about the matchups coming up.
Yeah, and so far this year he's been spot on. I won't say he was been 100%, but if he's not, he's pretty darn close. And he picked the Bills.
Well, I hear you, but I know for a fact that you and I lost money once with one of his suggestions. So it hasn't been 100%,
Yeah, okay.
but maybe he's been pretty good.
And then today I heard that a couple of guys on ESPN have now picked the Bills to upset, if you want to call it an
An
upset,
upset. Okay. Okay.
over the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, listen, we have family members who have bet the Bills. I know for a fact.
And
You and I have family members
yeah,
that have bet the Bills.
yes.
Yes.
And I thought about it and I said, why all of a sudden was all this money going on Baltimore? And now the so-called experts, and let's say they probably are experts, they're picking the Bills. Well, I thought about it and I came to the conclusion that this year's Buffalo Bill divisional round playoff team, in my opinion, is better than last year's divisional round Buffalo Bills.
Okay. Okay.
Part of that has to do with how they're built right now, how they are today, meaning their injuries versus last year's injuries, so on and so forth. But actually improvements over specific players
Okay.
that I think really will change their destiny.
Okay, well, let's get into that. So, what are some of the players that you are thinking about here?
Well, the very first player, and you guys are going to think, wow, is he crazy? Josh Allen.
Okay,
Josh Allen last year and in previous years, he's been riddled with interceptions and fumbles. The guy likes to hold on to the ball. He waits until it's the last second. He whips it down the field. Hopefully, they make a completion. But in the past, there's been so many interceptions because he's trying to do everything, or he's getting caught behind the line and he's fumbling the ball. Now, he didn't lose all those fumbles, but I think last year was something like 17 interceptions and 16 fumbles. And it's incredible. And the previous years were not that far off of those numbers.
okay, okay,
This year, he's only had maybe 6 interceptions for the year, give or take. If he had seven, pardon me, but that is a lot less than what he's done the last few years. And fumble, he's hardly fumbled at all this year. He's gotten rid of the ball quicker. He's learned how to get rid of the ball, the dump off guy to get some yard, make positive plays instead of negative plays. He's a different quarterback. He's an improved quarterback. And this year is the first year that I think he was legit or is legitimately an MVP candidate
okay.
because of those improvements.
Unfortunately, he doesn't have straight up like he's throwing for less yards, has less completions. So like it, we love him. We think he should be MVP, but he really didn't perform that way on the field
Oh, I see. I don't.
statistically.
I don't agree.
And
You know.
with the one exception of turnovers, but he didn't have the yards, he didn't have the completions, so that's going to hurt.
Well, yeah,
Really.
he's not going to win the MVP. I think Lamar Jackson's already got that locked up. But the amount of yards thrown is kind of a false degree, in my opinion, of what they should be looking at. In my opinion, what they should be looking at is how well did he protect the ball? How many times are they scoring? How many times are there ball control and are there turnovers? And in my opinion, Josh Allen has finally become that field general, the one that we've been talking about for a few years. A guy that can take over a game, but has found a way to get the ball to his playmakers, keep the ball safe, and throw for those crazy touchdowns like we saw last week to Ty Johnson in the back of the end zone. He can do those things, but he doesn't have to do it on every play, and he doesn't have to be Captain America. He's a field general. And that to me it makes the difference. Where Lamar Jackson, he can throw the ball. He's not as accurate as Josh Allen, but his danger is he has an incredible running game. You take that running game away from uh, Lamar Jackson, he's nowhere near the quarterback of Josh Allen. And that's why I think Josh Allen is so much improved and truly an MVP type candidate.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. They've got 13 wins this year.
Yeah, they could have had 14, but they rested their players.
They had 13 wins this year. Yeah. He doesn't have a lot of turnovers. All that is true. Okay. And he's had some special plays throughout the year. The touchdown run against Kansas City. He's got a couple of pretty good throws, so he's got some splash plays, probably just not enough overall to win the MVP. But he has looked, but he has certainly been the impetus, and probably he's the best player on this team. He's the MVP of the Bills.
Most certainly. And I mean, who else would you rather have on your team than him at this point as quarterback? You want to argue for Mahomes or you want to argue for Lamar Jackson?
I think the multi Super Bowl winning Super Bowl MVP would be good. I think Mahomes, that would be a good choice. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I can see that argument.
Sure.
And I can consider that's a good one.
Everybody can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't take him over Lamar Jackson.
No, I don't either. And neither did Bean. And because he didn't, he still has a job.
And you know me, back at that draft period, I wanted Lamar Jackson.
Yeah,
I wanted Lamar Jackson, and I still like him. And don't get me wrong, but I think that Josh has now found himself.
Okay,
that's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not okay. So, and you think that his play going into this game will be as good or maybe better than his play last year? Like they didn't play Baltimore last year, but in the divisional round.
Well, I do. If you remember last year, we were going punch for punch against Kansas City the first 2 or 3 possessions on each team.
Okay.
And they stopped us one time and got the lead. And it took us a while before we finally stopped Kansas City and we were able to catch up. But the difference this year is I don't have the feeling like every play I have to yell out to the TV, Josh, don't do something stupid. Josh, don't throw an interception. Josh, protect the ball. I have confidence that he's going to be smart with the ball.
It's interesting that years when he's made more plays, you had less confidence than now when he's maybe made less plays, but the difference is for you, turnovers.
But the difference is for me that, turnover and getting those first downs and continuing drives.
Okay. Along those lines, you said that in this game, this year, he's done a better job of getting the ball into the hands of his playmakers. Okay, so with that, what playmakers this year do they have that are better than last year's corresponding? Because we're picking them to win.
Yeah,
and this team is better than last year's team. So are there playmakers on this team that are better than last year's playmakers?
Yeah, certainly James Cook.
He's better this year than you think he was last year.
I do. I don't know that he's rushed for more yards, or about the same year. He did break 1,000 this year. Over a 17-game season anymore, a running back that gets 1,000 yards is not like it was way in the time where it was only a 12-game season, which I remember, a 14-game season, which I certainly remember, and then a 16-game. Now it's a 17-game season. They're still measuring 1,000 yards. In my opinion, it should be a 1,500 yard. It should be the measuring stick. But that's another conversation. But Cook has learned how to. He's got quick step through the hole. He's learned how to get behind his blockers, look for that crease. When he finds the crease, that's when he gets his acceleration. He's not a true speedster in any sense of the word, running 75 yards down the field, but he can get through a crease really quick. He's slippery and he gets through and he's into the second level.
Okay.
But when I look at running backs, the player I would talk about is Ty Johnson.
Okay.
John, that's a guy, a running back, the backup, if you want to call him that. But I really think it's more of a different type of running back. He's good blocking or looking for the blitzer, helps give Josh Allen protection. He can certainly run. He's almost as proficient as James Cook, although he doesn't get as many opportunities, but he is good when he gets them.
Okay.
But he can get down the field in passing situations.
Okay.
The most notable maybe is the one we just saw last week against Denver, where the guy streaked down the field into the back of the end zone and caught I don't know how many yard pass that was from Josh Allen for a touchdown to push that Bills lead and help put that nail in the coffin against Denver.
Mhm.
Now that's a running back that you use in a passing game, and we've seen him do maybe not streaking down into the end zone, but making great catches and getting yards after the catch.
Okay.
For the Bills.
Okay. Anybody else want to talk about there?
Uh,
Players that are making plays this year and put them in a better position than last year.
Yes. Von Miller.
Okay.
Von Miller came back from his injury late last year.
Yeah.
He didn't appear to make much of a difference. We saw him on a number. They're using him on passing downs, obvious passing downs. And his job was to try and sack the quarterback, let's say. But we saw that he really had almost no impact.
Yeah.
I think he was still getting better coming off that injury. And this year, we've seen him struggle earlier in the year, and then he was out for 4 games from a suspension, and we had all this kind of stuff. And now we're late in the year, and he's starting to bring heat. He's putting pressure on quarterbacks. He's getting their feet moving. It's not just about the sacks, but he's making quarterbacks uncomfortable in that pocket and giving guys like Rousseau an opportunity to get in there. I like the way Von Miller's playing right now.
Okay. Interesting. So the 4 players that you mentioned are all players that are on the Bills team last year. But
Yes.
at least in your opinion, play has improved. And in a way, that's kind of what the Bills needed because they didn't go out and spend much money on free agents. So, like, if they're going to be a better team this year than last year, they needed the players that had to play better. And you're thinking that at least 4 there are definitely playing better.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you one more.
Oh, we got 5.
Matt Milano.
Okay.
Now, we already know he's a great player, but he came off a devastating injury. Quite frankly, I was unsure that we'd ever see him play again for the Bills.
Okay.
But he came back and this year, and he's kind of going through some of the things that we saw Von Miller go through when he came back from his injury. Not have the speed, be rusty, not quite taking the same right angles or this or that, or just getting back into the field of the game. And we're starting to see him get back to his old self.
Okay.
As we get into these playoffs, he's starting to make a difference. And having Bernard and Milano together at the same time is making a difference in the Buffalo Bills defense.
Well, okay. All right. All right. Well, unfortunately, Milano did not play in the playoff last year. He was hurt. He
Mm-hmm.
was in the middle of recovery.
Bernard was
And
out for the divisional game too.
are you saying Bernard, is that another player? Is that a sixth player?
Well, he's an improvement over last year's team at this time because he was out on an injury.
Okay. Okay.
And if you remember, Rasul Douglas came back for this game last year, but he came back off an injury and he wasn't quite himself. And yet he's healthy now. So the Bills' overall defense is much healthier than it was. But I was specifically talking about Milano. I think coming back off his injury, I like Dorian Williams, but I think Milano is a superior linebacker, and we're starting to see some of his savvy come back.
Okay. Well, my only caution is with Milano, the sample size is very small.
Yes, it is.
So he could very well have had a nice game last week and it not be an indication that he's back.
Mm-hmm.
He could have just had a nice game. And we'll see how, from week to week, his improvement it may kind of go like this because that's sometimes what it's like when the elderly come back from an injury.
Yeah,
And he's getting a little longer.
that's true. You're absolutely right. What I like about him is that his experience and knowledge. Yeah.
And similarly to Vaughn,
Mm-hmm.
who he has. I don't think he's had injuries this year. He did have the 4 game. His sample size of playing well and getting into the backfield and being a little bit of a disruptor is pretty small. I mean, like 2 or 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the season, he was not that. When he played, like obviously, I'm not talking about the 4 games when he didn't play, but the rest of his season, he hadn't been much of a difference maker. And hopefully, Vaughn will have learned from the previous game because we had mentioned that Baltimore, in the previous video, we mentioned that Baltimore likes to do those read option play. And Vaughn in particular played that really poorly, often committing to the running back and then discovering the running back doesn't have the ball.
Yeah.
And their outside containment is rushed in,
Mm-hmm.
and Lamar was wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And who the heck could catch him, right? So if the safety doesn't get a good angle, he'll take it for 40, 50 yards. So, okay. Well, I got you. So you got how many was that total? Was that 5?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about 6 because we talked about Cook, but my point was Ty Johnson makes the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Again, I felt like we had last year seems to be making some bigger splash plays the second half of the season here that we haven't really seen from him before.
No.
You know,
And can you imagine saying your quarterback, who's been phenomenal, is better than he's been in the past?
well, I don't.
By my
That's your
measurements.
measurement. Yeah, that's your measurement. The only thing that I would say is all that's fine. Part of the reason for this with the running backs is that they have a commitment to run. The offensive line running attack has gotten better. Like it's much better than it was 2 years ago. It's gotten much better. That offensive line coach that they have, it's his 3rd year, and it really seems to be making a difference. The only thing is, I've said it before, there's a real lack of talent, in my opinion, in the wide receiver room,
Mm-hmm.
and Kincaid didn't really work out. So as a consequence, they're using what they got.
Mm-hmm.
And what they got is they're using Ty Johnson, and then Cook is running better behind that offensive line. He's also making catches. He also is catching the
Yes,
ball.
he is.
Maybe they talk about that 1,000-yard rusher. Maybe they need to relook at it not from a rushing perspective, but yards from scrimmage. Just 1,200 all-purpose yards for a running back, because so much of this game is about passing.
Thurman Thomas changed that, and it wasn't recognized at that time. But you look at it today, there's more running backs modeled after a guy like Thurman Thomas than a hard-nosed running back like Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, yeah. Who is the great Dallas running back?
Emmitt Smith.
Emmitt Smith. So at the time period when Thurman Thomas and the Bills had their heyday, almost unilaterally outside of Buffalo, you would hear that Emmitt Smith is the best running back in the league.
Mm-hmm.
With for a while Thurman Thomas being second until Barry Sanders started doing his thing, and then he looked, and then
Mm-hmm.
everyone said he was the best with
But
Emmett.
he was a running back.
But he was a running
Yeah.
back, yeah, yeah. So okay, anything else you want to throw in there?
Let's see. Uh, yeah, I was going to mention again about Josh Allen and measurements. He's still a guy, whether he hasn't thrown for the same number of yards as he has in the past,
Which
because
he has not. Yeah,
because
you could look that
well,
up. He hasn't.
not because he missed throwing the passes, because their game plan was such that it
Mhm.
incorporated the run. He's still responsible for 40 touchdowns,
He is a
28,
special player,
28
right?
throwing, and 12 running touchdowns.
Yeah, he's a special player.
40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so that's some of the things that I use as a measurement. But those are the ones I wanted to talk about. And thank you for giving me the opportunity.
All right, go Bills. Have a great game, or enjoy the game, everyone.
Keep watching, because you never know if we're coming back tomorrow. You never know.
Bye, everyone. Enjoy the weekend.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.